Hello, my name's Peter Merrill, and I've had the privilege of being the first chair of the ASQ's Innovation Division. Innovation's getting a lot of attention, and many people say, well, why is this? If you look at the world around us, we're going through an absolute perfect storm of change. We're seeing change around the planet with digitization and globalization, change in the marketplace, and change in our demographics as people grow older and move around the planet far more. It's this perfect storm of change that leads to the interest in innovation. And it's interesting to go back to the words of Charles Darwin, who said, "It's not the strongest of the species that survive, nor the most intelligent, but the one most responsive to change." And that's how we respond to change, by innovating. We respond to change by finding new ways of doing things. And if you look at the word innovation, it breaks down into three roots, which literally mean doing something in a new way. But I want to point you to some other things that are going along. As you look at the agenda of the executive suite, the C-suite as we often call it, there's no question that innovation is right at the top of their agenda. And like it or not, they've come to the point where they see quality as expected. A good barometer of what interests the executive suite is the publication, the Harvard Business Review. And if you look at the last 10 years of publications, you'll find that there have been between 100 and 200 articles on innovation alone. Now, the ASQ has its own interest in innovation. Back in the year 2007, it was the theme for our World Conference. And during the intervening years, there have been many things going on, including the beginnings of the development of our body of knowledge on innovation. And in 2015, innovation came back on the agenda again for ASQ's World Conference. If you look at these two activities, quality management and innovation, they in fact cohabit. They both start by finding what is the customer's need. A quality professional will agree with the customer which needs they can meet, but will also agree that there are certain needs that cannot be met, and that's usually because of limits on our capability. So they will tend to leave some needs unmet. And this is where the innovator enters the stage. They address unmet needs. So let me tell you a little bit more about what innovation is. There's a wide range of understanding, and there are many definitions, like there are many definitions of quality. But let me give you the essential elements. As I've just indicated, innovation is driven by an unmet need. It means we create something new, and it may not be just a tangible product. It may be a new service or a new business model. But that new, whatever it is, creates benefit, and it will normally involve some kind of radical change in the way we do things. And as you already know, innovation starts with creativity, and creativity is about getting new ideas through allowing our imagination and looking at unconventional ways of doing things. And that occurs when we have freedom to think, and when we're exposed to new stimuli. So let me take you into the innovation process. This is what it looks like. It starts with an opportunity, some kind of unmet need in the marketplace. And you know, it's interesting, the customer may not even realize that need. They learn to live with it, and they think, well, this is the way it is. The good innovator will see that opportunity. And then we move on to finding solutions, conceptual solutions. The physicist Linus Pauling had a great saying. He said, the best way to get a good idea is to get lots of ideas. And we know that from our experience of problem solving. And then once we've got our lots of ideas, we narrow our focus and decide which is the best to pursue. And that takes us into step 3, which is the development stage. We take maybe 1, possibly 2, or most 3 alternative solutions and quickly narrow our focus to the best one. We develop a working solution. And the job isn't finished there, because once we have a working solution, then we need to deliver it to the marketplace. And it's amazing how many organizations stumble at that last post of delivery. At each of these stages in the innovation process, you'll find that different types of people are needed. And you'll find you have your own particular aptitude depending on which experiences you've had in life, what your own natural capabilities are. The first step of finding the opportunity is where we call the people creators. They actually initiate the whole thing. They're great at seeing market opportunity, and they're usually at their best when they're in a market research environment. Connectors are then the people who find conceptual solutions. And certainly within ASQ, we have more than our share of connectors. If you went to the world outside, you'd find connectors are a rare breed. They're in minority. But in ASQ, there are more than enough connectors. Then we choose our preferred solution, and developers are the people who make sure, to quote the old saying, the wheels don't fall off. They make that working solution which is easy for the customer to use. All too often we go to the marketplace with either a new service or a new product, then we rely on the customer to make it work. And that's where the competition will jump in and take off with a better solution. The doers are the people who finally deliver their solution. These are the people who are very action-focused. They are results kind of people. If you want to find out which of these types of people you are, there is actually an assessment tool on the Innovation Division website. This is what the tool looks like, and I'm not going to take you through it right now, but if you go to the Innovation Division website, you'll be able to work out your best role. So let me take you through each of those roles in a little more detail. Creators see the need. They find the opportunity. They're people who are at their best in a market research place or in some kind of research environment. Very practical people. They work best in an open network and in a loose kind of environment which allows their subconscious. What creators are not good at, though, is defining absolutely what the problem is. That's what connectors do particularly well. They connect to the solution, and we use this term because they often find solutions in other environments, in other industries even. These are the people who work best in design, in R&D, and they're much more thinking type of people than creators are. They work best on an open network. They work best in a loose kind of environment, just like the creators. So both creators and connectors need the same environment, and at the same time, creators are practical, connectors are thinkers. As you go through the innovation process, it's important to recognize that as you develop alternative solutions, you've got to develop, as I said a few moments ago, many alternatives. But also, as you go through the process, you need to shift the content of your team. I've not said it up till now, but innovation is a team sport, no question about it. We get our best ideas through collective knowledge. And in the early creative phase, that's where we need lots of creators and connectors. As we get later into the execution phase, we need more developers and doers. Developers again, thinkers rather like connectors, and they are typically engineers or systems people, and they work best in a closed network. They need a tight mode of operation because they are very results focused. They make the idea work. And doers, again, rather like creators, are practical people. They deliver. And these are sales or production people, again like developers, work best in a closed network, in a tight mode. I think you can see as you work through this process, it's so important to have a mix of people. And that mix changes as you go through the process. You'll hear frequently people say successful innovation comes from diversity. I've mentioned the two types of network, and this shows pictorially what they look like. In the creative phase, you have an open network which is good at sharing knowledge. It works best on 2 or even 3 degrees of separation for harvesting knowledge. In the execution phase, though, the network needs to close and go tight. This is where we need results. The good news is that an open network on a project team will naturally morph into a closed network. One more thing I want to talk about. Often people say, what's the difference between improvement and innovation? And our thinking is evolving there to the point where we now say improvement is more about where we refine a process and it leads to a better product or service, but the process remains the same. It may have had a step changed or it may have some change in requirements. That's what improvement's about. Whereas innovation is an entirely new process leading to an entirely new product or service. One thing to remember though, that execution phase of the innovation process is synonymous with quality management. One other thing I would add here, the difference between improvement and innovation is not a sudden transition. It's actually a continuum. Not unlike the difference between correction and prevention, if we use the language of quality. So let me take you a little deeper into creative work. These are the essential behaviors for creativity. Exploration, in which we step out of the box and get new learning and get new ideas and opportunities. Collaboration, where we interact with people different from ourselves. And that's often uncomfortable because we tend to operate by what's called the mirror effect. We tend to be drawn to people similar to ourselves. And thirdly, and for many perhaps the most important, is the willingness to fail. Experimentation in which we try things out and find new solutions. So the innovation process starts with finding opportunities, using an open network, and by talking to either existing customers or potential customers. And we don't ask them, do we meet your requirements? We ask them, where are you having difficulty? They may not even know what their unfulfilled needs are, but we will find them by asking them where they experience difficulty, where do they waste time, where are they having trouble getting things done. This is the start of the creative process, and then we go on to define the problem. And as a quality professional, you know that that problem definition is so important. I'm going to give you another quote from a famous person here, from Albert Einstein. He said, if I had an hour to save the world, I'd spend 55 minutes defining the problem and 5 minutes finding the solution. So think about that. So now, how do we find solutions? We've got the problem defined, but classic problem solving or solutioning tends to find solutions within the status quo. we deal with immediate cause and effect. We find a broken step in the process or requirements that are not adequately specified. Connectors find solutions in completely new environments. They take a creative approach. And again, here's that man again, Albert Einstein. He said, "No problem can be solved with the same level of consciousness that created it." So we find creative solutions through using our imagination and through an unconventional approach. And that occurs when we have freedom to think, when we interact with new stimuli. Unfortunately, those factors have been taken away from us with our daily work these days. And so we tend to have, we tend to work in a box, have lunch in a box, and think in a box. So what we need to do is step out of that box. And that's where we allow our creativity and use our collective knowledge, interacting with people different from ourselves and allowing ourselves to go, right brain, this separates us from the competition. And so the creative process begins with a clear problem definition. And there are many different methods here. It's often called ideation these days. And it usually starts with people privately writing their own ideas. And then it follows by different methods of circulating ideas and stimulating new ideas. A key factor is randomness. This kind of approach eliminates that loud voice which says, oh, that won't work. Or it avoids people being frightened of rejection if they can write anonymous ideas. And more, that will allow wild ideas to develop. And these sort of techniques can generate 40%, even 100% more ideas. And there are many ideation techniques. Brainwriting is one of them. Clustering is another. There are many methods. And it's important not to just use one method and not just do it once a year. This is something that you build into your organization. Good organizations structure this looseness into the way they do things. Excellent companies recognize that this creativity and this looseness is important in their organization. They draw their wisdom of crowds out into the open. Google were famous for this, although it has to be said, the news leaked out not too long ago that their famous day a week of creativity had been quietly shelved. And that's sad. Good companies do this all the time. They pursue wild ideas. And group genius is something you have to pursue regularly. So we've now reached the tipping point in the innovation process. We've got lots of ideas, and we now need to choose which are the best ideas and narrow our focus. At the tipping point, one of the big dangers is that we become risk-averse and we only pursue minor innovations. But the important factor is that radical innovations make far more profit, although they do involve far more risk. So what we need is good data and information, and each new idea is rated on how quickly it can be executed, what is the cost, what's the risk of it working, and importantly, how radical it is. This is where we set our strategy, and where, very importantly, we also make plans to mitigate our risk. And while I talk about risk, for the risk-averse, here's a thought from the financier James Goldsmith. He said, if you see a bandwagon, it's too late. So you're looking for something new, not to jump on a bandwagon. Our behaviors now change. As we get into the execution mode, we need to make our solution user-friendly, and we also need to deliver the solution. And the big danger here is the people who are thinkers love to keep thinking. They love to blue sky, and they love to stay loose. I'm afraid now we have to focus. The need for speed is absolutely paramount, and we achieve that through good discipline. There's a strong work ethic needed here, good project management, and we need to monitor and control our project as we move through to final delivery. So at the development stage, we make our solution work, make it user-friendly, and we do that through a closed network, recognizing time is of the essence, and we avoid staying loose. We test our solutions as we move along, and we engage the customer to get their feedback. We don't leave that till the end of the process. And here's another famous quote, which really applies at this development stage. Thomas Edison said, "Genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration." So finally we're ready to deliver. Some interesting analysis from the University of Michigan shows that for 3,000 ideas, typically only one is going to make it. If you follow a good process, your one will make it. And so now it's the job of the operations and salespeople to deliver the solution. And we don't suddenly drop this on them. We would have engaged them as part of that development phase, so they're ready. Advance notice is their biggest advantage. The thing about the final stage is that we actually know a lot more of the obstacles than we realize. Back at the tipping point, when we did the risk assessment, we found out what were the delivery obstacles. We found out what were the supplier risks. And very importantly, back right at the beginning, when we saw the opportunity, we also saw who were the potential early adopters. So here's a mind map which summarizes what I've taken you through in this session. We see opportunities initially with existing customers, broaden later to potential customers. What we're looking for is what the innovator often calls the pain statement. And in market terms, we're looking for a greenfield market. We then start looking for solutions which are preferably radical. We look in new worlds, and we look for many solutions. We also collect as much data as possible, so that when we get to the selection stage, we can then pick out the most radical solution and take risks. We know the return on investment, both short-term and long-term, and very importantly, we assess the external risk with our partners and with our potential customers. And at this point, we're now ready to start developing the working solution. During that time, we manage our supplier risk really closely. We move fast. We monitor our progress, and we involve the operations and salespeople at this development stage. And then finally, we deliver. We know in advance where the risks are. We may well, in fact, choose to have a market partner to work with us, somebody who knows the marketplace we're moving into. And we equip ourselves with a good value proposition that tells people what are the benefits, not the features, what are the benefits of this new offering that we have developed. If you want to know more about innovation, you should connect with the ASQ's Innovation Division. It'll help you to understand innovation. You'll see where innovation fits with quality. And you know, innovation is one of the ASQ's core values. So go to asq.org innovation-group and you'll find yourself be able to engage with other ASQ members who are interested in innovation. and you'll find there's enormous energy there. Everybody loves innovation. So let me finalize by saying you have choices to move forward. Do that self-assessment on the Innovation Division website. You may want to do an organizational assessment, and we can help you with that. But look at forming a project team and execute a project. Pilot the innovation process. And you'd be most welcome to join the Innovation Division.